Hello, everyone, and welcome to how Marriott and Uber are shaping the future of business travel. My name is Jason, and I'll be moderating today's session. We'll get things started very shortly with our content here, so please take this time to ensure you can hear me correctly. At this time, you should also be seeing the introductory slide to today's webinar on your screen. Before we jump in, I'd love to just get a chance to meet our panelists for today, Tammy and Susan. Thank you both so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Hi, Jason. Great to be here.
Yeah, good to see you. It'd be great to get to know a little bit more about both of you. So let's just start with an icebreaker. What do you miss the most about business travel, or do you miss it at all?
For me, I think it's that time on a plane where there's no Wi-Fi. So emails are not coming in anymore. When you've done the bits of work that you wanted to do on that plane, and then you sit down just to watch a movie and just take a little bit of a break. That was always just a piece of time that was really nice to reflect on the day and take a bit of a break before getting off the other end and getting back into the craziness.
There's more and more Wi-Fi on planes now, so you might not be able to get that breather at this point. But
yeah, I'm with you, Jason. I'm like, oh, I forgot you could not actually log on. Right? That's actually a great tip. I think same for me, everything that Susan said. And I think also I just so miss being in our hotels and seeing the hotel staff and the employees, and I miss our customers, and I really miss being with my team. You might learn a little bit about me over this webinar. I'm an extreme extrovert, and this year has been really hard. I'm not meant to sit in an office every day. So I will tell you, I was last week at Meeting Planners International's annual conference in Vegas, and there were 1,300 of us there in person.
Wow.
It was fantastic. I was like, we're back. And it felt like nothing had ever changed. So yeah, so for me, I got to get back and see my people.
yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Light at the end of the tunnel, definitely. But hopefully we'll all be able to travel again shortly and soon. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started then. So hello, everyone. Jason here from Uber for Business. I'll be your moderator and speaker for today's webinar. So thanks for joining us. I'm really excited to have Tammy and Susan here with us. We're going to go ahead and get started now, as we have a lot of content and great discussion to be had today. Today, we're going to be talking about how Marriott and Uber are shaping the future of business travel, which has arguably changed quite a bit over the last year. This is mostly going to be a discussion between Tammy and Susan, with myself moderating. But before we do that, I just wanted to first go over a quick overview of what to expect in our session today. So we'll have about 40 minutes for a chat between all of us. Then at the end, we'll hopefully have a chance to go over any questions you might have. So feel free to get your questions into the Q&A panel as they come. Don't worry if we don't get to them. We'll definitely follow up to make sure your questions are answered. So today, as I mentioned, we have Susan, Global Head of Uber for Business, and Tammy, SVP of Global Sales at Marriott. My name is Jason, and I'm on the Uber for Business product marketing team. So we're going to give Tammy and Susan a chance to introduce themselves in just a second. But first, let's go through some housekeeping notes. So super important, please do use the Q&A panel at the bottom. Just hover over the bottom of the webinar, tap Q&A, and then just put your questions there. And we'll try to get to them at the end of the session. And again, if not, we will follow up after the session. So quickly before we jump into the fireside chat portion, here's just an overview of Uber for Business. So Uber for Business brings the best of Uber across rides, meals, and delivery to businesses around the world. And what started actually largely as a business travel solution, the topic of our webinar today, has now expanded into additional use cases around office meals, item delivery, and much more. Our business solutions, products, and features, things like group ordering for team meals, vouchers for virtual events, are trusted by over 150,000 organizations worldwide across 26 plus countries. And we're really excited to continue to innovate and grow with our customers. So a lot of exciting things going on. And with that introduction, I'm going to have Susan and Tammy do a quick intro of themselves. Susan, can you start by sharing with us a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, of course. So pleased to be here. So I've been with Uber for 5 years and played a variety of roles. I started in the Australia business, launching Uber Eats. I then was running the mobility business across Australia, New Zealand, and North Asia before stepping in to lead Uber for Business. Before I was at Uber, I spent a bit of time at Amazon and a bit of time as a strategy consultant. So was very much in the space of business travel, knew exactly what it was like, kind of going every week to your clients, seeing where they are, and traveling where they needed me to be. So well versed in that. Over to Tammy.
Fantastic. So my name is Tammy Routh. I have the privilege of leading the global sales team at Marriott International. And just for those of you that aren't aware of what that is the team of sales professionals who manage our largest B2B customers. So that could be corporate customers, association customers, all kinds of intermediaries. We handle the leisure, business travel, and meetings. I'm going to beg all of you when I tell this next stat, don't do any math to count how old I am. Okay, please don't do that, because Marriott's the only company I've ever worked for. And this month it's 38 years. And I just have had I have such a passion for the hotel industry and for Marriott, and just had all kinds of cool jobs within that. I worked at hotels, and I've worked in region, and I've worked at our corporate headquarters. But this leading global sales and getting to work with the pros on the team and our customers and our hotels is just, it's just wonderful. It's wonderful. So Jason, thank you again for the opportunity.
Awesome. And thanks both of you again for being here. Lots of amazing perspective and experience within this panel, specifically around the topic of business travel. So really excited to get this conversation going. So today we'll talk about learnings from COVID, so the past year, and the new ways that we're engaging with our colleagues and customers. I'll also talk about the importance of business travel for organizations, where business travel is headed in 2021 and beyond, and really just deep dive into business travel and its evolution going forward. So Tammy, Susan, are we ready to hop into the fireside chat portion of the webinar?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's get going. So first question, just to start things off, business travel has changed so much in the past year, right? What was that like for each of you and your teams? And maybe let's start with Susan, and we'll switch for the other questions.
Yeah, thank you. So it was a radical change for Uber, both for our employees, but obviously our business as a whole. I mean, 70% of our employee base were traveling pre-pandemic. And that was because our company had very global, very collaborative, and lots of teams that needed to get together frequently, meet in order to think through plans, brainstorm, do coaching, do training. And so it's actually been a pretty radical change for us. We're also one of the industries that just a lot of our business obviously was travel pre-pandemic. Lots of our clients were using Uber for Business for both to get their employees moving around and visiting their own clients, doing all of the work that came with that. And so there's a few things that we saw happen. The immediate changes, I think the thing that was really surprising was how quickly things stopped. It went from business as usual to a whole new world within a matter of days, wasn't even weeks. We spent a lot of time, we were beginning to prepare for this in February, actually. Because I worked in APAC at the time, we saw COVID hit Hong Kong in January. We kind of had a heads up that this was something that was likely going to impact our business, and began to start preparing. Like, how do we make sure our customer service team can all still work remotely? How do we make sure that we continue to be able to meet our safety processes while everyone is remote? How do we make sure that our teams understand and keep them safe? And what are the plans that we need to put in place to support driver partners during this period of time? So we had very active work during that period of time to get ourselves ready. And then since then, I think what we've been learning is, one, there's a lot that you can do remotely. In a way, given it's a very global company that we've been working in, we're quite used to having some people on a phone or some people on a video and some people in a room. In a way, for someone outside the US, it's been useful to try and make us a little bit more inclusive around how does this feel? If you were sat in the European office or in the Latin American offices, you were probably always used to being on video, and maybe it was harder for you to get involved in the discussions and participate. And now everybody was on a video. And so it's kind of leveled that out quite a lot. But then I think kind of the other kind of big challenge that we had there was, you know, parents kind of working from home. They've got their kids, like trying to make sure we were supporting our teams and making sure they had the right solutions in place there was really important to them. Tammy, might hand over to you. What did you see?
Did you see my head nodding the whole time? Because it was so much of what you said is the same for us. When you think about global sales, our job is to be with our customers. So like you said, it felt like overnight, we went from traveling the majority of the time to trying to figure out how we were going to do this virtually. I will say it was also a real learning for me that our US-based teams have always worked from home predominantly. I'd say 97% of us have always worked from home. So we got really good at how do you engage teams virtually? How do you do team building? How do you motivate? All of that. But we were still used to being on the road. And so that still, there was a lot of change. And then outside the United States, as you said, Susan, most people went into an office. So the change of how do you manage teams virtually we had to put a lot of work into that. But I am really, really proud of the leaders and the whole teams and the way they stepped up. They did the most fun, engaging things to keep the teams motivated. Like, I'll just give you an example. I don't think I've laughed this hard in a long time. In that I said, "What are you guys doing? You know, to keep the fun in it?" And they showed me some things. Like one of their sessions was bring your pet to the webinar. Like there were like all the boxes had a pet up. I just stuff like that just to me, but it got them to know each other a little bit better. I think is amazing. The other thing we did is we made a commitment early on because obviously the hotel industry was hit extremely hard in the past 16 months. And whether we were furloughing people, we had to let people go, or we had reduced work weeks, our commitment was, first of all, we were going to take care of each other because it was just a horrible time. We were going to try to get as many people back to work as possible. And our number one objective was to stay in contact with our customers. And so we made sure that whoever was working was touching base with customers every week or every other week, depending on what the customer wanted. And Susan, I can't tell you the innovation that came out of the past 16 months, whether that was new ways of doing things or this new kind of business that we've been booking that was 100% creativity between our team and the customer that we wouldn't have done if we had been on that roller coaster of getting on a plane every week and doing business as usual. So I have found it to be, while it was horrible, never want to go through it again, you have to see the bright side of it and be grateful for the things that you did learn and that did come out of it. But at the end of the day, we're the hotel business. We need people traveling again. We need people in our hotels, and we can't wait to have our guests back.
I think that innovation point is so true. We saw a similar thing, which is our business went from very focused on business travel to really looking at the broader set of products that Uber could support our clients with, and actually really innovative, exciting conversations that say, you know, talking to our clients and saying, how can we help you support your employees or
Exactly.
to work with your customers during this period of time? And we've seen kind of a lot of embrace of Uber Eats as a product there. So being able to provide for employees food at home and actually using those for those creative team engagement pieces. One of the things that I did with my team was a virtual pop quiz, and it was so fun. Like somebody facilitated a quiz, and we've been seeing kind of our clients using Uber Eats and giving vouchers to people remotely to say, right, we're all going to have virtual lunch together. You order it in, you sit down, we'll eat together. We've seen people do that with fun events, but even kind of that kind of service around hackathons and creative innovation sessions, and really trying to keep some of what you would do if you were together remotely, which has been super interesting to see. And I also really agree just around our management and our leaders having to take that time to listen and help their teams understand how to navigate this time has been really great to see. A lot of care, huge amounts of empathy. We have hilarious Slack chats that happen, like Meme Mondays is one of my favorites. And, just people really trying to pull the teams together during what was very difficult. And so I hope our management actually out of this have a whole new set of skills that they can bring to when their teams are back together, and continuing to understand that our teams and our customers have a life outside the work that we do, and we've seen a lot of it on Zooms now. But I think even when we're in the office, I think we'll all remember the little kids and the dogs and all of those things that we know that they're at home.
Tammy, you've now set the expectation now for future webinars. We need to have our pets on the webinars too. Not sure if that's something we can uphold, but I'm sure they'll be expecting that now.
It was really funny. And here's your tip: if you don't have a pet, it's a stuffed animal, so everybody can participate. So.
Nice. Well, no pets on this webinar, but we do have a lot of exciting conversation to be had still. I think a lot of what we just talked about seemed like so long ago, right, during the pandemic, and how things were changing for organizations. But given these like post-pandemic trends that we're seeing now, and some of them are listed on the slide here, how did these changes, and I think both of you have already touched on this a little bit, but how did these changes in business travel impact your customers? So aside from your organizations and your teams, and maybe Tammy, you can start with this one.
No, I would love to. One of the bright spots for me is that I have probably talked to more customers in the last 16 months, one-on-one. I tend to, in the past, have talking to people more in groups. So I have absolutely loved having these conversations where you can ask those great open-ended questions about, what is going on in your company? Why? What are you thinking about? What do you think your travel policies are going to be? All of that. So what we've seen, and again, what I did learn is every company's different. That's for certain. But there were some themes. One was in the very beginning, we just need to wait to see what the CDC says, because we're going to follow government guidelines, that type of thing. And of course, we all need to do that for duty of care. What's been very interesting is it seems like that's been bridged over to now we're looking at the distribution of vaccines. So let's just make sure we have a little bit more time to make sure that the majority of the people in whatever country I live in has the vaccine. And then we're going to feel better about putting people on the road. So that's been an interesting dialogue. We do a bi-weekly survey of about 700 global travel managers. And what we are seeing is that we're now over 50%, probably closer to 60% of all these global travel managers saying we are back to essential business travel. So if you've got to go see a customer, you've got to go to a very important, maybe it's a distribution center or an office to keep this business running, you need to go. But you need to follow guidelines. You need to book in my program. I need to know where you are. Some companies are different with vaccination or testing. That's their, that's their travel policies. But we've been very excited to see that. And if you just look at Marriott data in the business travel world, week over week, we're up 20% of actual stays, not just on the books, but actual business travelers staying. So this is amazing. We are seeing a slightly different, slightly longer length of stay. The brands that are doing the best at Marriott are extended stay brands, so Residence Inn, Town Place Suites, etc. And that's basically, I might not take as many trips, but when I go, I'm staying longer and getting more done. So that's been interesting. And the other thing that I find fascinating is, well, first of all, this is because governments, we can't travel outside, in many cases, outside our home countries. So you look at China. China is back to 2019 levels, and in some cases exceeding 2019. And it's all China for China. Think about that. Like, isn't that incredible? So think about when the international travel comes back. This is going to be very interesting to see how we manage that kind of demand. And the same is true in the US. So right now it's a lot more domestic business, same for Europe and CALA. So I think that's, we've been watching that very carefully. We've been working with our customers on a work anywhere strategy. So if, like we were talking earlier, like if you're in your home and it's just not conducive to business, maybe you're living in a major city in a smaller place, this idea that you could go to one of our hotels and have quiet space, great Wi-Fi. And in many cases, I think we're all learning this term bleisure. You know, you're able to combine a leisure trip and a business trip because you can get and work from anywhere. The offices may not be open. And that idea of, I might bring my family along on that as well. So I think those are some of the things that we're seeing with our customers. But I think, Susan, you and I mentioned it earlier. Our job today is to just ask really good questions and listen, and then help find a solution for our customers with how they feel the most comfortable.
Yeah, I think that's right. So some of the things that we're seeing is this choice aspect you referred to, Tammy, which is we're just increasingly seeing both within Uber, for instance, but as well as our customers, that there will be an aspect of allowing some people to make the choices about what travel they feel comfortable with. There will be some people who have different levels of their own personal perspectives of safety, depending on what is happening around them, their own personal circumstances, their own health. And I think that is something that we're going to see people continuing to respect. And so I think it's interesting around what will that mean for travel in the future? Because I think kind of continuing to allow people to make the right choices for themselves will be a trend that stays. The other thing that, you know, I think we all need to be very aware of, particularly if you're in a global company or working internationally, is that the situations we're in are very different depending on country and depending on where you are. The vaccine schedules are very different depending on certain countries. The kind of control of the virus through other means is different depending on where you are. And so I think there needs to be an awareness, and we're going to see for a bit of time just a recognition that you know, just because one place is opened and is ready to move does not mean that is how all our customers or all of our teams are able to move. And so kind of being aware of the differences and the variations by state and international, I think is going to be another trend, and something that teams will need to be asking those questions around, understanding from customers, how will that change things? How are they thinking about kind of the shift between kind of domestic and international, and whether some of their policies will be globally consistent or localized, I think is going to be really important. And then the third trend that I think I see is it's kind of linked to both of the above, but is of this very conscious travel. So I think what we're going to see is where previously people would have said, oh, there's a meeting, I'm going to jump on a plane and make sure I'm there in person. I think both from kind of our kind of companies making some choices that say this is actually going to be a remote meeting, not an in-person meeting. But conversely, also, this is a meeting where we want people to come in because we are going to design this such that we want people to be there in person. So I think that's going to be a real enhancement. You know, no more of those, I'm going to get on a plane, go somewhere for a meeting, which was basically me just listening to someone tell me things. I didn't need to necessarily be there to engage. You know, that's something you can probably just still do remotely. So some of the kind of more transactional meetings do not need to be in person, but then it means a lot more thought and care and consideration around actually the purpose of this trip is to bond or to create learning or to share experiences. And if you're thinking about that in a very conscious way, I think the way that you would build those sessions would be quite different. You would think about what's the right location? Does it need to be in an office or is it somewhere else? You would think about who are the people that need to be there in order for you to achieve those objectives. Maybe that becomes more inclusive and a wider set of people in order to achieve those goals versus maybe not just leadership in some of these spaces. How do you make sure you've got the right space in order to kind of create that? How are you broadly facilitating the interactions to make sure you get from that what you need? So I think we're going to see a slight difference that keeps going, but actually a really good one. It should mean business travel will come back, but it will be more conscious and thoughtful about where does this most make sense? And actually, where does it make sense for us to just keep using Zoom, given everyone is now accustomed to it?
It does seem like it's just like an ever-evolving situation, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. I was one of those people who used an airplane like my commute. So I think you're right. I think it's more thoughtful. I think you summed that up beautifully.
Yeah, I think there's so much change going on, right? And I think we've described in the past kind of section change for both the organizations, you and your teams, but also for your customers. And just curious, what have like from all of this, what have you learned, and what were kind of those key learnings? And maybe start with Susan.
I think one of the key things I take away is the fact it's sometimes easy to lose sight of the fact that people are humans and have lives that are bigger than their job and what they come in and do every day. And we've seen it. We've seen it, like we've talked about. We've seen the children coming into the room. We've seen people having to turn the video off because, you know that they're having to do something else as alongside that. You see the pets. But actually kind of, I think there's a piece of this that maybe kind of is not quite so visible, which is, I see lots of narratives around working from home is great. Why would you ever go back? And I'm like, well, that feels like a very privileged thing. That's probably true if you're living in a lovely house with space and you can carve out space for yourself to be sat down and working. But if you're in a flat share with a number of other people who are also trying to work, or maybe you're kind of in a small place sharing with other family members, or maybe you don't have the best Wi-Fi, or even maybe you're a young person and frankly, like part of work is being out there, meeting people, getting those connections, getting that kind of like the energy of being with people your own age and sharing is really important. And so I think we have to be very thoughtful about the fact that one size absolutely does not fit all. And while some people have had a really good 12 months, some people have not. And so I think you kind of need to stay really recognize that and think about how do you kind of keep that going forward. And part of that is around the inclusion that comes from this. I remember when I had small children, I really wanted to work from home one day a week or two because I had quite a long commute, made a big difference, like me being able to get home for bath time versus not. And it was hard because if you weren't there in person, because the office was not set up to be inclusive on meetings, I missed out and was not able to contribute, and I really couldn't do my job. I think one of the things I really want us to kind of maintain is this inclusion, which is there are going to be some people where they're just not going to be able to come into the office, or coming into the office is very difficult. They have maybe mobility challenges, or they do have things in their life that mean that actually staying at home is something that is important to them. And it does not reflect their commitment to a job, and it does not reflect their passion, what they can contribute. So we need to keep that inclusivity and kind of for those people in order to be able to move forward from that perspective. And that works from a global perspective too, right? I think one of the other things we changed during this time that I hope we continue is kind of pre-pandemic, a lot of meetings were set on US hours. And that was because if you were international, you would travel to the US and do the meeting in those terms. And now where nobody could travel, time zones, people are recognizing they're a real thing, and kind of having to do a through the night meeting in Asia because you're working with the US team is not very social. And so we're beginning to see kind of meetings where it is a global forum changing time zones. Like one time it's going to be US time zone convenient, another based around Europe, another based around Asia. And really kind of, again, it's that consciousness and thoughtfulness and being inclusive about people who are on that. So I hope we keep those up.
Yeah, everything that you said, I so agree with. And I just read some research on that topic and I never thought of this before, the inequity of the people who either could not go into the headquarters, let's say in this case, or the offices, or were located, somewhere else. And that we hope that when everybody starts to go back into an office, or they don't, better yet, that we remember that. Because if I'll just use my own company, I've worked both at our global headquarters and I've worked remotely. And I know what it feels like to try to dial into a meeting where 90% of the participants are in the room and you're not. And you do feel disadvantaged in so many ways. And so I read this article suggested that maybe even though people go back to work, maybe nobody ever goes into a meeting room again necessarily. Maybe they're all taking it via Teams or Zoom, and then they come together in more social aspects. So I think that's very powerful what you said. The other thing that we thought about early on in talking to customers, and this talks about work, so where you're going into work every day, but it also talks about meetings and events, is this idea that you really do need to have a hybrid approach, Susan, like you said, and so that you can give people the choice of how they want to work. So we early on said, we have to be a leader in this space. We've got to go out and think about what would meetings and events look like if they were hybrid. Now, again, selfishly in the hotel industry, we want as many people face to face as are willing to gather. But again, having this alternative for people to dial in. So we took our commitment to clean protocols, which is everything about social distancing and cleanliness, and we converted that over to our meetings and events called Connect with Confidence. And we've spent the better part of a year not only putting protocols together that pertain to this hybrid, but also with just really working with our customers. Starting back in November, we actually held our own customer events. Again, think about November. That was pretty early, getting customers to come back into our hotels and show them how you could do things safely, how you could do it in a way that the ROI was amazing, and then having that virtual component where people did not feel disadvantaged. They felt a part of it. So I think that we spent a lot of time really thinking about how we could help lead the way based upon our customers' feedback.
And then I think, oh, go ahead, Susan.
I was going to say, kind of like responding to the slide that's here as well, kind of this focus on sustainability is another, whether this is to do with the pandemic or just where we are and kind of consciousness, we've seen a real step change in kind of clients raising this around a consideration for how they think about sourcing their products and what that looks like. So we have a product called Uber Green, which is our electric vehicle product, where we're further ahead in Europe, largely to do with kind of the investments that the governments are making there into electric car infrastructure and subsidies to make it an affordable solution for driver partners. We're seeing our clients, when they're thinking about business travel and this return to travel, sustainability is front of mind. Uber Green is one of the products that people are wanting their employees to choose or have as one of the top preferences. Already in France, it's about 10% of business trips, which is extraordinary given how new that is. And I think this is going to be a really interesting trend that continues. It's kind of linked to that conscious travel piece. I think it's going to mean that we're very thoughtful about this now. Why we travel, how we travel, what's the right way of doing that, and really kind of thinking about the overall experience and what we're trying to get from it. So I think the sustainability aspect is really, really interesting too.
Yeah, I might have jumped the gun to switch the slide a little bit, but while Tammy was talking, I felt like she was leaning a little bit towards there. So Tammy, anything else to add in terms of sustainability and that trend?
Yeah, this has been the biggest surprise for me. in the past year was the renewed emphasis on sustainability. I think I've learned more about carbon emissions and offsets than I ever thought I would learn in my career in the last 6 weeks or so. But we've loved the dialogue with our customers. We've had a lot of one-on-one conversations with the global travel manager, the meetings team, and the person in that corporation who manages their sustainability practice. And it has been fascinating to us, again, how everybody looks at it slightly differently. But the one thing that was the wake-up call for us at Marriott was, especially these big companies who, or I guess they could be smaller too, that this is a strategic priority to be carbon neutral by a set date and having their science-based targets. What was the wake-up call for us is the impact of travel on those goals. And the fact that if you want to be a preferred supplier in the future, you're going to have these science-based targets too, and you're going to have to meet them because their supply chain has to be in alignment. So we have learned so much because, again, we have the time to sit down, talk through this, and we're really working on a lot of things in this area. But I think it's all that, again, that responsible travel and even though for us, even though airline is by far the biggest player in this space because of they're probably 95% of the emissions, we can play our part here. And it's an important part, and we're looking forward to working with customers on it.
Yeah, one of the very few positives from all of this was that we got to realize the world is very different, when we're not traveling and when we're not polluting or just appreciating the environment, kind of the stark change between what was before and after. And then obviously now traffic is going back to almost pre-pandemic levels. But just seems like the world has changed so much. It's actually a good transition into kind of the next topic. Now that the world has changed so much and we've been through and survived such an interesting time in all of our lives, where do you both see things going for business travel and businesses as it relates to business travel? Maybe we can start with Tammy, this one.
Certainly. I think we've talked about a lot of them, but I'll give you a few other thoughts. We have been in that survey that I mentioned earlier that we do with global travel managers. We started asking the question about, when are your offices opening again? And when do you think you're bringing people back? Because we certainly equate office openings to business travel. And it's not necessarily always the employees of that company, but it's also those who are going to see somebody, so that consultants or vendors and suppliers. So we've definitely seen that offices are opening, that the fall seems to be the indicator when they think that offices are opening, business travel, you'll really see a spike. We've seen professional services, defense contractors, pharma, healthcare rebounding particularly well in the last couple of months. Again, the bleisure that's on the screen, we're definitely seeing that, where I'm just going to combine that. I think also we're staying really close to helping our customers understand, and this is slightly tactical, but how do you price business travel now? How do you do that annual RFP process when none of us really know what's going on? And that takes a lot of dialogue and partnership and trust to figure out how we're going to work on this together for the next year or so. But I feel like I'm really bullish, and so is our CEO and our executives. We're really bullish on business travel, meetings and events returning, because leisure is back and it's been sustaining our company, and it's been exciting to watch that as well. But business travel will come back, but it will be probably slightly different, and that's okay.
Yeah, what about you, Susan? What do you think?
I think we're seeing similar things. If I look at Australia, for instance, which is like we talked about earlier, which is already pretty opened up, and similarly kind of in the US recently with the great progress that's being made on the vaccinations there, we are seeing people get back on the roads. They want to go back and see their clients. They want to get back and spend that time with their teams in a very conscious way. And so I do think this will be, I think things will return in a lot of good ways, just around kind of business travel again, because a lot of why it was done before remains true today as to why those trips were needed. And then what I think it just layers on is this consciousness level, which is good for us, because that's where the sustainability comes into, the thinking about the inclusivity, the thinking about kind of the people around that. So I think it gets us kind of a more conscious, more better for the world business travel solutions, and for all the extroverts out there, of which I would put myself in there as well, Tammy. Like, it means that we can all get a bit more sane and be with some people and talk for a long time and get it out of our systems after being in our rooms on our own for far too long.
Yeah, I know, looking forward, I definitely can't wait to travel. I think, both for leisure and for business. I guess I haven't traveled for business travel for a while now. One reason why I can't wait is because of the newly announced Uber and Marriott partnership, right? If you didn't know, and you're attending this webinar, and by now, just wanted to make sure everyone knew, you can actually earn Marriott Bonvoy points when you take an eligible ride or order an eligible meal with Uber. So all you need to do is link your Marriott Bonvoy and Uber accounts, and then you can earn points on all of those eligible rides and meals. There are also additional bonuses, so that if you order Uber Eats to a Marriott property or a hotel within the Marriott portfolio, I think you get an extra bonus as well. And it's super easy to get started. You just go to your Uber Eats app. There's a settings, you scroll down, link your account, and you're all set. So in an effort to not sound as much of a commercial as possible, but it is a great plug, because I know, I was looking forward to a partnership like this for so long, because it's just additional benefits to kind of layer on top your business travel and leverage it for your personal. And that's all great, right? Everyone loves to use points for personal as well.
Absolutely. We're delighted to do the partnership. And this came from talking to customers and listening to what people wanted and what was important. And Marriott Bonvoy points were top of the list of things that were really important to our customers and what their employees wanted to see. So I think this is a really it's a great partnership. I hope people use it and give us feedback and let us know how it goes. But delighted to be working with such a like-minded company.
I just realized that I was, in my excitement to share the news, I didn't flash forward the slides, but here you go. Here are the specifics in terms of what you can earn. And so tons of abilities or different ways for you to gain those points. So this is kind of just a quick flash in terms of the details of this partnership and the exciting future. Awesome. So with that small plug, we've come to the end of the fireside chat session. But first, wanted to just thank Tammy and Susan so much for sharing all of your insights as well as your experiences. Some key takeaways that I had were that the way we work is changing. We need to adjust accordingly, both within our organizations, but also just within the broader business travel industry. And things are just going to continue to change and evolve over time. And we're just going to have to adjust based off of that, because a lot of it we don't know, with the evolving guidelines from the government and et cetera. Another thing that I took away was also sustainability, right? And it playing a big role in how we move forward with business travel and how we explore the world. Like when the world stopped, it seemed like the world just got so much more beautiful. You could really take the time to enjoy the world in its natural glory. But now, once we've gone back to the usual, it's really thinking about, or the new normal, the new usual, thinking about how all of our actions kind of affect and our overall sustainability efforts. And then lastly, I guess business travel really isn't going anywhere, right? I think, yes, we did take a pause in the past year, but we're all just somewhat ready to get back out there and kind of experience the world. Those are kind of the key takeaways. I don't know, Tammy and Susan, do you have any other key takeaways that you'd like our attendees to take away from this? And Susan, we can start with you.
I think it's around thinking holistically about your teams and your travel. So kind of think about, if you're thinking about how to do engagement, be thoughtful, like what are the ways that you can do that? Yes, kind of travel as part of that. Can you also think though that if you're going to have kind of a hybrid, some people in person, some people about home, how do you leverage things like Uber Eats, things like kind of delivery, other things that make it feel holistic and consistent for the experience, kind of depending on where people are. I think the other piece is, for me, I do wonder over the next 6 to 12 months how different things will be. I hope we retain some of the goodness that we've talked about, but I do think people will want to go back to some of the experiences they were having before, and to begin to kind of be there in person, because that's, you know, we build relationships that way. We build a lot of trust comes that way, and we've gone so far through Zoom, but I do think kind of in-person connections, whether that's one-on-one or in big groups, remain really important to us. And so I look forward to helping move your teams and move your customers, and doing that in a way that makes that as safe, sustainable as possible.
Yeah, I think that I've always known this, but in this travel business, we all need each other. And that just became so crystal clear for me. And I think that like you said, Susan, I really hope that we keep that partnership mentality, this let's have really transparent, authentic conversations. Here's my business needs, here's mine. Let's come together to find a way to both be successful. I just feel like we maybe relationships always have mattered, but I think we got a little systematic with processes, and it's always been done this way. And we had a chance to sit back and I think figure out new and better ways to do it. I hope we don't lose that. And I feel like we got a chance to have deeper relationships, because again, we had a lot of time for one-on-one conversations. I wouldn't have had a chance to meet you fabulous people at Uber for Business if there hadn't been this time, right, that we could have come together. So I think you said keep this goodwill going, so that we all are successful in the end. And I just think good times are ahead. I'm actually very excited about what we're going to see through the end of the year and the future.
Hopefully we can all reunite for an in-person kind of session and fireside chat at some point, and it would be a perfect kind of bookend to all of this. We started with a remote webinar. All of us were across the countries or across the world, and then maybe we can do one in the future after everything changes or evolves. So
we got a lot of hotels that would love to host it.
By that point, I'll have a lot of Marriott points after the partnership, so it'll be great.
That's right.
But great news, it looks like we have some time for a couple of questions. So I know some people have been adding questions into the queue. This first question actually is there anything you foresee not making a comeback? We've talked about trends and kind of where we see business travel going, but post-pandemic business travel, are there things that are just not going to kind of make the cut? And Tammy, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, I will be redundant with something Susan said earlier. I do think that all of us are going to say, for that internal maybe meeting, that I might have again just hopped on a plane for a one-night trip, I think we'll rethink those and we'll be more thoughtful in how we go about that. To me, that's probably going to be the biggest thing, because what I've noticed is, and again, in all these conversations that we've been having, some of the most senior people in companies, the road warriors, the consultants, myself, you did a real gut check of, I don't ever want to be that tired again. I don't ever want to do that to myself again, but I love to travel. I will travel, but I'm going to be thoughtful about it. And where I can do what we're doing today, I will. But I think it's internal business meetings, small ones that you could easily gather. That's my gut check. Susan, I don't know if you feel the same.
I really agree. I think I think that's where people will take a look at it. I think the buzzword is it's going to be conscious business travel. It's not that subconscious. Of course, I'm just going to jump on a plane and do it because I feel I should. I feel that's a reflection of my commitment. I feel that is what's expected of me. I think that goes. I don't think that comes back. I don't think it comes back kind of with a view of the default is we've got to get everybody in person. I think the bar gets higher, which is the experience around this. Like, if I'm pulling people together and we're going to go through the cost and the effort of having that travel, I'm going to make sure it's worth it and thoughtful and think about the agenda. So I think you're right. Those internal meetings that maybe could be an email or a remote meeting. Maybe that's the way it'll go.
Yeah, really thinking certain priorities, right? And I think
Yes.
that's actually a good transition into this next question too. In terms of priorities, and both of these companies are across the world. So when you're looking at regionally as you roll out plans to help your global teams get back to traveling, what are you looking at specifically? And maybe you can start with Susan on this one.
At the moment, we're thinking regionally versus internationally, but looking forward to beginning to, at the right time, create those forums for coaching and collaboration and training in person. And so thinking about that within a country to start with, but starting with that, which is getting the teams together, particularly because we've had a lot of people join Uber and have never been in an office and have never met their coworkers in person. Oh, Jason, one of cohort of remote newbies, and like we want to kind of pull that together. And the focus in the near term is that early stage kind of collaboration, trust building, training. And then for me personally, I've not met a lot of my team, so I'm looking forward to kind of taking that chance to go and meet and go and make sure to spend time with people in person and with customers in person. So, that is that aspect of, can have some Zoom calls, but sometimes kind of seeing it on the ground and understanding the travel situations and how people feel and being able to get access to more people than you could just get on the Zoom or invited, because you're walking around an office and having those side conversations. That's where I'm focusing my time personally.
I feel the same way. I talked about, I was at that Meeting Planner International conference last week, and I hadn't thought about this, but I've got a new leader in the US and Canada, and she was there along with a couple of her team members. She'd never met them face to face. And I had to turn away because I thought I was going to cry when they first met. I was like, oh my God, I never thought about that. You've only seen each other for 6 months, 9 months on a screen. You can't replace that. Like, that was the time they spent, at dinner and relationship building. I mean, that was so amazing. I'm headed to Mexico City next week. I'm super excited. We're doing a customer event there, and I can't wait to go. And so that'll be my first time. I've done other business trips, but outside the US. And then for the rest of the team globally, because we're a sales force, we're going to be just really smart about where we send people. But if they need to go to take care of a customer, to close on business, to reestablish a relationship, we're gonna support them on that. We've got to get back on the road with our customers, and we'll follow, though, like our customers, we'll follow the governance of the CDC, local government. That will be smart about it, but we're going to get back on the road. Yeah,
definitely looking forward to those face-to-face conversations again and interactions. I think it's definitely something that's just been missed. But that seems like that's all we're going to have time for today. Again, if you asked a question and we didn't get to it, we'll do our best to follow up after the webinar. Feel free to reach out to us as well and learn more at our website. Thank you again to Tammy and Susan so much for taking the time and joining. And thank you all for joining as well. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.